In markets around the world, stock prices fell like dominoes.
We're down 1.7% here, a loss of 37 points or so. Apple shares are just getting hammered this morning.
We're down by between 3 and 4.5% generally across these markets. Let's talk about the speed with which we are watching this market deteriorate. We're red everywhere, essentially, down by 4-5%.
We're down over 16%. Dow at the same time has fallen about 18%.
The stock market is now down 21%.
Because we're now down 43%.
What in the world is happening on Wall Street?
Two-year note yields went from 190 to 166 in the blink of an eye.
I have never live looked at the Dow Jones Industrial Board and seen a 600-point loss.
Who knows where this is going to end up? I mean, this is volatility we haven't seen, of course, since way before you and I were born, even before our grandparents, 1929.
So almost everything there completely wiped out. And the NASDAQ, everything and more has been completely wiped out.
The Dow traders are standing there watching in amazement. I don't blame them. The credit market
676 points down.
It was the worst day on Wall Street since the crash of 1987.
We are in New York this morning with Hillary Rodham Clinton. Senator, we want to talk about this bailout, this $700 billion bailout. Liberals have their doubts. Conservatives have their doubts. I want to talk about some of the sticking points, including executive compensation. Should all of this money go to these giant Wall Street corporations and the executives still be paid what they were going to get paid before?
Okay, it all started in the United States. In the beginning, banks and other lenders were doing well. Interest rates were low and cheap loans were available. They lent money and took on debt with no worries. They were doing so well that they had more money than the customers wanted to borrow. So they looked for new markets to lend to. They found the subprime market. Subprime means people on low income. People who had not been able to borrow money before, and people with a poor credit history. In short, unreliable borrowers. So the bank started lending money to these new risky borrowers. Many of them bought houses, and the bank took on their new subprime debts. The lenders also bundled some of their debt and sold it on to other banks and investors around the world. They said the debt was sold as mortgage-backed securities, and this seemed like a good idea at the time because they thought that house prices would always rise. Then things started to change. The housing market cooled, interest rates started to rise, and cheap loan deals disappeared. This meant people started to default on their mortgage repayments. Investors started to wake up to the risk. The party was over. People with subprime mortgages faced negative equity. This meant that the lenders could no longer guarantee that their loans would be paid back. The banks and other lenders had to write off billions from their balance sheets. The cost of borrowing went up and lending became scarce. And so, this made it difficult for money to flow around the world.